Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast.
The last time I saw you was January of 2021. 2022 was for the marathon.
I guess that was January. Damn, so it's been over a year. That was when I first got to Austin. I'd only been here for like 3 months or 3 weeks.
Literally a year and a half.
That's crazy.
It's already June right now, June 8th.
That's wild, man. And you're still in LA, right?
Yeah, based in LA. Been out here for like 6 years now.
Where are you from originally?
Massachusetts. So about an hour and a half west of Boston. I got a little tattoo. So this little spot right here, that's where I grew up. Boston would be right there.
Dang. How was it growing up in Mass?
How was it growing up in Mass? That's a great question. Honestly, it's not even until now that like when I look back on it, I have so much gratitude in the environment I was raised in, the parents I was raised by. I loved growing up in the Four Seasons. I think it was great, like having the snow, then the hot summers. It was incredible. Like I struck the lottery with the environment and the parents I was raised by. And it was kind of like that balance of like, you know, I always use the example that when like school came around, my parents would buy my sister and I like new shoes, but like if we wanted a second pair, like it was on us to go find a way to make money. Or if a new video game came out, every once in a while, my parents would buy it. But then when the second one came out a couple weeks later, they're like, all right, go figure it out. Like go make some money. So I grew up in a really great environment. And yeah, the city is Chicopee, Massachusetts. It's like 55,000 people. It's in Western Massachusetts. It was kind of the best of both worlds of like 50,000 doesn't seem like a lot of people, but there it's the third biggest city in the western part of Massachusetts. So it was amazing just being able to have access to a city, quote unquote. Now living in LA, I'm like, this is it. That was a joke, but yeah, man, I'm very grateful for kind of where I was raised.
That's cool, man. That's such a good balance that your parents had. It sounds like. I feel like mine were pretty similar, but dude, I mean, I don't have kids or anything, but I know being a parent's got to be one of the hardest things, and finding that balance of like giving your kids what they want and like making them happy, but not giving them too much, because then they just become ungrateful and it's like expected, and that's where entitlement can come in. It's a tough balance, I feel like. Yeah,
I'm not a father yet. I'm 29 years young, not on the radar just yet. Someday for sure. But even I was like, just, you know, you get to a place with your significant, you know, I've been dating my girlfriend for almost a year now. And so you get to that place where you're just talking about like, if we had kids one day, what would that look like? And one thing that me and her had talked about not too long ago was like, what does that look like if you have a lot of financial success, which is what we're both striving towards and we'll get to. And I'm like, listen, my kids are gonna work. I'm not giving them no handouts, because I saw how much that shaped me. Like I had my first job when I was 12, 13 years young. And that work ethic, I credit who I am and where I am today all because of that work ethic that I developed at such a young age. So my kids ain't getting no handouts. They are gonna be working. I'm going to make sure that like I treat them right. And you know, that's what you want to do for your significant other or for your kids or for your family. You always, I think we all have that desire to take care of those around us. But let me tell you, 20, 25 years from now, my kids can play this back. I made y'all work for it.
I love that, man. I think, yeah, I mean, all the hardest lessons I had to learn growing up were because like my parents made me go out and do shit, like get a job and make your own money. And if you really wanted something, like you had to just go and fucking do it yourself.
Yeah.
But do you remember what your first job was?
Of course. I'll never forget. It was my uncle owns a garden center called Class Grass Garden Center in Granby, Massachusetts. I'm plugging him for the millions of people that are going to hear this episode and want to go shop in Western Massachusetts. And I'll never forget the day. I was literally like 12. It was like a Saturday. It was kind of cloudy. It was probably April. Because I remember it was gray. It was the springtime. And I told my mom, we were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I was like, I want to make some money today. And I'm 12. And she's like, okay. And she's like sitting there and she's like, do you want me to call your Uncle John and see if he needs help at his store? Like, it's the busy time of year and maybe he'll need you. And legally, like, I can't apply anywhere at 12, but like I can help a family member out. Right. So she called him and he's like, yeah, like bring him down, got dressed, went there. And then it became a weekend like thing every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. When I wasn't in school, I was going to work for him. And it was incredible. I was outdoors. I was watering plants, bagging people's trucks, helping with mulch. And truly, I that was like my first job. And I worked there for 3 or 4 years. And then I kind of popped around and, you know, once I got into high school and could apply to jobs, I got a job at a grocery store. Then I worked at Finish Line. I was the top salesman for selling shoes. Kind of popped around. But without going too deep, there was a really pivotal moment in my life when I graduated college. And I was 6 figures in debt. I hadn't applied to a job. Was thinking about starting a podcast, but I didn't know what that was about. I didn't know if I was going to do that. This is 2016. And I moved back home after school. Once again, needing to make money, I called my uncle, like, do you need help for the summertime? So I go there for, you know, I'm like, it'll be short term, couple weeks. And there's a moment where I'm watering plants and I'm like, holy shit, I'm back to where I started. And I have a college diploma in my back pocket. Looking back on it, I can laugh, right? But when I close my eyes and I emotionally take myself back to that moment, I was scared as shit, Jeremy. Like, I was like, did I just like fuck all this up? Like, I have the diploma. I'm back to square one. Like, I love my uncle. I love this job. I've learned so much, but this is not what my life is supposed to look like. I'm not supposed to be back here. So without going too deep, this opportunity has served pivotal moments in my life. And luckily, ever since that moment of when I had that like, oh shit moment, never had to go back.
Damn, dude. Well, I want to go deep into that. I want to know like how you ended up back there in the first place. So you started working when you were 12, 13, did this job for your uncle. Sounds like you're always kind of a self-starter for the most part. Like you had a lot of motivation without somebody telling you needed it. Then where do we go from there? Like, I want to know that the next like decade, basically, how you ended up back there. Let's go deep.
I love it. Stop me at any time. Like, just jump in and tell me like, hey, hold on, because I can just keep rolling.
All right.
So you figure that's like 12 or 13. Once again, I popped around to different jobs in high school. At the time, I don't have any idea what I want to do for college, or I started having some ideas of schools I wanted to apply to, and my mindset, and I don't know if this was because of the environment I was not raised by within my parents, but just like the kids I was hanging out with or society, the narratives, I was like, I'm going to go to business school because I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I just know that I want to drive a nice car, climb some corporate ladder, wear a suit every day, make bank, live a good life, and wear a Rolex. That was like the dream.
Sounds good on paper.
Sounds great on paper. So that's, to me, is the dream. So I go through high school, do my thing, and eventually comes time for college. I don't get into my dream school, which is called Bentley University. So I go to this other school called LaSalle College at the time.
Is this in Mass or Northeast somewhere?
Yeah, in Mass, right outside of Boston. I do a year at LaSalle, and then being a self-starter, I actually ended up transferring into Bentley. So they didn't let me in as a freshman, but I transferred in as a sophomore because I crushed it my freshman year at school. Spent 3 years just doing the college thing of like no clear direction, just having fun, partying, experiencing, doing good in school. And it was during my junior year of college that I have this moment to finally get a taste of what it's like to work in these corporate environments, right? Now, for context or for like a comparison, I feel like probably a lot of your audience are people that prioritize running and fitness, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you tell yourself you want to, you're just getting started with running and you can't wait for that day to run your first 10 miler. And the day comes and you're like, damn, this kind of sucks. Or you have that mindset of like, I love this every mile. I think you get to that like with time, but like I think everyone that goes out in their first 10 miles, they're like, this kind of sucked.
Yep.
So you go to the peril of me. I get this internship at not a corporate, it was a startup company. But I get my first taste of like showing up to an office, doing the same things, seeing the same people. And they were all great people, very nice, kind, hardworking individuals. But I kind of looked around and I was like, this is not for me. This ain't going to work. And that's a problem because this is my junior year of college and I'm about to graduate next year. And this is what I thought was the dream. So I take everything with a grain of salt. I'm like, all right, I'll finish off the internship. And they ended up, this was like during the school year. So it was like part-time, 15, 20 hours a week.
Can you say what company this was?
I don't, out of respect to them. Okay. Actually, you know what? I don't even think it matters because I have nothing but good things to say about them. And it wasn't them. It was me. It wasn't the product. It was a company called, interesting enough, it wasn't Snapchat. It was called Snap Inc. And it was a software. It was a B2B software. I don't know if they're still in business. I probably should look it up. And if they went on to get acquired for some crazy exit amount, then I probably should have stuck with it. But they ended up offering me a full-time summer gig, and I turned it down because I just knew this wasn't what I wanted to do. So I started driving Uber part-time. And I saw the money I could make. So I was like, let me just do this as like a summer job. Like I'll work as many hours as I want. I'm a people's person. I'll get to live in Boston. Like, great. So
is it between junior or senior year?
Junior summer, you're going into senior year. So it was great. I worked like Monday through Thursday, took a half day Friday, lived it up on the weekends, did it all over again, all summer long. And so now senior year has arrived. And I know going into senior year that I have no idea what I want to do with my life, but I'm going to do my best to enjoy this year. I don't want to look back and regret that I was miserable the whole time and then I graduated and then like it all worked itself out, but now I have to live with knowing that I just neglected my senior year of college. And so I lived it up. I had a blast. I was doing what every senior college student does, which is having the time of their life while kind of trying to figure it all out and finish school.
What does that involve? Like drinking, smoking, like that kind of thing? Or
yeah, I will say like, I've always heard those college stories of people that went to like those big universities and they're like partying on like a Tuesday night and like a Wednesday night. Like I never really was like that. I don't know where it came from, but I was very like regimented already where I was like, I'm not going to party until the weekends come because the weekday I need to like get my schoolwork done. And that was like a priority for me. But this was also a very pivotal time because I was open-minded to like, what is the next step of my life? And this is when I started to get a taste of like self-improvement. I discovered Lewis Howes, the host of the School of Greatness podcast. I discovered Gary Vee, started following Tony Robbins. And now in my free time and my alone time, I started feeding myself this content, these conversations. And it was just like eye-opening to me of like, man, there are people out here just like living their best life, creating their dream life, and they're doing it. And podcasts were the medium I just started consuming and just listening to these conversations. So the rest of senior year is like that. Just me following my curiosity, listening to a lot of podcasts, reading some books, still no idea what I'm going to do after school. And spring semester, this is when I'm kind of like curious and interested in starting my own podcast. This is spring of 2016. Podcasts aren't what they are today. And I kind of like evaluate myself. I'm like, what does it take to be a podcaster? You need to be a curious person. That's me. You need to be a people's person. That's me. You need to ask somewhat good questions. I'm like, I ask pretty solid questions. So I was like, let me think about this for a bit. So I kind of marinate on it for a few months, and I graduate, back at the job, working at my uncle's, just like, what am I going to do? And I'm still passionate about this podcast idea, but I know damn well this ain't going to be the thing that makes me money. Immediately, at least. So I have a conversation with my parents, and I'm like, listen, I've been here for like a month and a half, 2 months back in my hometown. It ain't working. I don't know what I want to do. I need to change things up. And so I was like, I'm going to go back to Boston, which is an hour and a half away. My buddy has like a 6-week lease that he can offer me. I want to go back for 6 weeks, see how things shake out while I'm in Boston. Maybe new opportunities will come my way, and I'll figure it out. So while I'm in Boston, I start my first podcast called Purpose in the Youth. So
what did your parents, sorry to interrupt, what did your parents think about that?
They were extremely supportive, and this is what they said. I told them, I said, hey, I'm not just going to start applying to jobs. They're like, listen, we fully support whatever it is that you want to do. We trust whatever you're feeling and listening to, but know that when college loans kick in 6 months, because there's a 6-month buffer and then they kick in, they're like, that's on you. We're not paying for it. We're not going to help you. We've done everything we needed to do to get you this point. You need to figure it out. So I was like, great. Put the pressure on me. I'll figure it out. So I went back to Boston, and I saw the money I can make during summer working full time. And I was like, I could make a living. I could get by driving full time while I start this podcast. So I go back for 6 weeks. I balance making money while working on this creative idea of a podcast. And come August 31st, 2016, I launched the podcast. I tell myself I'm just going to drive Uber for a couple months until I figure out the next gig. Little did I know I would go on to not only spend the rest of the year driving Uber full-time while running this podcast. I then moved to LA and drove Uber full-time out here for 2.5 years.
Jesus.
While building the podcast.
What took you from Massachusetts to LA?
I knew since I was in 5th grade that I wanted to be in LA. Just something about the weather, the culture, seeing it in the movies. Absolutely no interest in being an actor, no interest in creative, nothing at the time of being obsessed about LA. And there were 2 other moments in my life I thought I was going to make the move. It was when I didn't get into Bentley. When I applied my freshman year of college, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to California. Like, this is my time. Every school I applied to shot me down. And then the second time I thought I was going to move out here was when I graduated college. And I was like, I have no plan. Might as well move to LA. I quickly stopped myself when I recognized I want to start a podcast. I need to know people. Why am I going to move somewhere where I don't know anyone? And that was before like remote really became what it is today. And Zooms were so casual. So I was like, not yet. The time's not right. So that third time was like the perfect timing. It was the 1-year marker of the podcast. And I moved out to LA with my best friend who was in music full time. So it was like the stars aligned. But I always knew that LA was a place that I wanted to live and be at some point.
Damn, dude. So you just said, fuck it, I'm going out to LA. Like, didn't have any real plans other than to drive Uber and keep doing the podcast, basically?
Yeah, 100%. I had visited and been out to LA probably up until up until 2016. I had visited LA 2 or 3 times in my life, and I knew like this is the place I wanted to be. No questions asked. But I think what was really important is I came back out to LA to record podcasts twice in the year leading up to me moving out there. And I kept building connections and relationships with like really good people that gave me the confidence of like, if I just get myself out here, I'm going to crush it. Like there was one trip I had planned when I came out here for, coming out here for 6 days. I had one podcast lined up. I ended up extending the trip for 3 or 4 more days, and I flew home with 7 podcasts recorded.
Damn.
And I will like honestly, like the guests that I had locked in while I was there were like major people. Like they had like hundreds of thousands of followers. Like I don't, my relationship to numbers of followers equaling success or numbers of followers equaling like your identity or like your value in the world has completely changed. But at that time when I had like 1,000 people on my Instagram, I got a guest that had like 200,000 on Instagram. Another guest that had like 300,000 on Facebook. Another guest that had like 200,000 on Twitter. And I was like, whoa, like these are real deal people and they want to sit down with me. So I knew, I was like, I need to make the move to LA. This is going to be like a game changer once I get out here. So all that to say, I felt really confident about making that move out here because of those 2 trips coming out to LA leading up to the year moving out here.
Dude, that still takes a lot of balls though, to just not like any for sure set plan. I mean, I guess you relied on Uber for incline.
I was 100% relying on Uber. I had no idea. Like, I didn't know. Like, I knew the money I was making in Boston, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the same amount of money. Also, LA is a massive city. Like, I knew Boston because I lived there for the last 4 or 5 years for college, so it was easy to navigate. I'm like, I'm going to be moving to a major city where I don't know anyone or anything. This is going to be like me rolling dice. And I just trusted my gut that like I would find a way to make it work with an Uber. Like I got to LA and within 5 to 6 days, I was out driving again full time.
Do you think that's one of the best decisions you've made is to leave? Like, do you think you could have done what you've done now while still staying in Massachusetts? Or do you think you needed to get to LA?
That's a great question. I would have made it work staying in Boston, without a doubt. But I think what I was interested in, the creative world, like I interviewed a lot of D2C entrepreneurs, videographers, film directors. The people that I was really interested in talking to were based out of in LA, and I could have found it in Boston without no questions asked. But I think that's such a good question. It's making me think about kind of like resets, right? I truly believe, Jeremy, at any moment in time, we don't need anything external to make a change in our life other than the internal of flipping a switch and saying it's time to make that change. And for me at the time, I think it was really important that I moved to LA when I did because I had a year under my belt with the podcast. I was really starting to change as a human being from Bobby senior year of college to Bobby Uber driver podcaster. Like I wasn't partying like I used to. I really was changing my identity because it was a now or never moment. And a lot of that meant too, like shifting the people I was hanging out with. So for me, when I moved out to LA, not only was it a fresh start, it was I'm coming out here and I'm only going to surround myself with people that are inspiring me or, are encouraging me, that aren't talking shit or questioning why I'm driving Uber, why I'm starting this podcast. It was really like a full reset in my life. So I think I could have made it work while I was in Boston, but I think just that whole shift of like location, it just changed everything. And also just the sunshine of LA. Like there was just so much about LA that was so tasty to me that I was like, I need to be there. So it felt necessary, but I know without a doubt in my mind, I would have found a way to make it work in Boston because I just would have. It was not even a question of if or how. It was just a matter of when. How was I going to make it happen? So yeah, I still would have. I would have found a way in Boston without a doubt.
That's a beautiful answer. And the reason I asked was like, for me, because we moved around a little bit too across the country a couple of times, and those are some of the most like pivotal moments where like you almost have an epiphany where you you get pulled out of like your environment, like your home state, Massachusetts, and you go to a totally new environment. And like you said, you just need that reset. And like, I mean, you can make it work wherever you're at. That's an important thing to note. But sometimes you need to get away from your family, get away from your friends or the place you grew up in or whatever, and just like be in a whole new environment. And I think you said it perfectly. It's a reset for you.
Yeah. It's also interesting that we're talking about this right now. And it's just like, life is so serendipitous, man, because I haven't publicly talked about this yet through social media. But I know you know this, which is like, I'm going to be moving from LA in 3 months to Austin, which is crazy that I'm even saying that out loud, because for the last 5.5 years, no thought of ever leaving LA. And it wasn't until in my relationship with my girlfriend where she, from day one of being in a relationship, was like, I want to get out of LA. It wasn't until our relationship that I was like, I will leave this city to make this work. And also I am kind of interested of like, I've been here for 6 years. So I've checked off a lot of the boxes, but also what would happen if we did shake things up and went to a different city? How much deeper would our relationship grow? What would that next chapter for me look like, right? Like I've even gone through my own identity being in LA. I feel like I've lived 3 different lives while being here. So it's interesting now, even just talking about that in a couple months, I'll be going through this process again. And it's like, I feel like this new once again, I truly believe inside I can flip a switch and I make changes and resets in my life on a dime. But I just know, and I'm curious to see, what is that full environment? How is moving environments going to really change me? And I think I'm 29 now. My 20s were truly, from 22 to 29, were about experimenting, about me figuring out what is my passion? What is my purpose? Who is it that I want to become? What do I want to do with my time on this earth? And I don't want to say I haven't completely figured out, but like I have a lot more clarity than I did when I was 22. And so I'm curious to see what happens when I put myself in this new environment where it's like just extreme focus, very clear, but also all newness and much calmer than the city that I'm living in now. So it excites me to even have this conversation with you today and kind of where we're going because of what is also coming for me in a few months.
Dude, I'm pumped to have you out here, man. I'm stoked to hopefully do some more podcasts in person and do a lot of other collaborations in person too. What made you guys pick Austin?
Yeah, it's honestly, it was like my biggest thing was like, listen, I love you and I want to make this relationship work. So if you want to leave, let's do it. My only ask is we need to stay somewhere warm. I do not want to go back to the Northeast. Do not want to go back to dealing with like 4 months of miserable snow. And so we kind of were like, all right, what? Like looking at the lower part of, we knew we weren't leaving the country. So it's like, where in the US would we want to live? And weirdly, I don't know what it was. I'd only been to Austin the one time that we had met, which was for the marathon. And even then I wasn't in the city at all. I was in the city for maybe half a day while there for 4 days. And I just have heard so many people from LA making the move to Austin. I've seen and heard the hype over the last couple of years. And I have friends that live out there like you. And I think we both kind of were like, would you entertain the idea of Austin? And my girlfriend loves like horses and Southern hospitality. And she like also was getting me hooked on the show Yellowstone. It was just like, I know that's not all of Austin, all of Texas, but I was like, I kind of vibe with this. So that was kind of how we landed on it. And so we came out to Austin a month and a half ago just to check it out and see like, do we get just a little taste of it? Does it feel right? And it felt really good. So that was kind of how we landed. Honestly, if it wasn't Austin, I think our other bet would have probably been staying in Southern California and just moving outside of LA, which it's just, you're paying the same prices. It's still super expensive. And I think we're kind of ready to like get a change up of that. So that's kind of how we landed on Austin.
That's dope, man. You guys are going to love it out here, dude. I think more than anything, it's the people out here that are so amazing. Like everybody's just so welcoming, and it's kind of like this big melting pot now because there's people from all over that have moved here, and it's rare to find somebody who's actually from Austin. these days. And so because of that, everybody is trying to make it, trying to get into a circle and a community out here. So like everybody's just so welcoming and encouraging. And I know you're into like health and fitness and that kind of thing. And it's like it's like a hot pot or the hot spot for health and fitness and running and all that. So you're going to love it out here. I know you will.
I'm excited for that, man. I could feel you always hear Southern hospitality, and I could just feel it. Even when we were there a couple weeks ago, man, I love LA, and this place will always have a special place in my heart, but it is respectfully a very competitive city. And it really is what you know, who you know, like what you do. You know, we went to an event recently, and respectfully, I mean, no disrespect, like it's, my girlfriend and I could feel we're being treated differently because we had quote unquote followers. And it's just like that type of stuff, man. It's not my vibe. It's not, I don't attach numbers to identity, and I don't know, but all that to say, I'm very excited for it. And I have seen outside looking in that there is a big wellness community, and we both are very big into that.
Hell yeah, dude. You guys are going to thrive out here. I know you will. So you moved out to LA, just ripping Uber. Didn't you do something like 19,000 rides or something?
19,002.
Oh my God.
Got it tatted on the back of my arm, baby.
What was a day in the life like during that moment or during that period of time?
Yeah. Honestly, it was kind of exciting every day, right? So I'm a people's person. I'm an extrovert. This was like the first 2 years living in LA, a new city for me. So I had really kind of figured this out from scheduling of like, how do I balance building a creative project while driving Uber? So every day was pretty much the same, like wake up at 6 a.m., go to the gym, knock out the self-care routines, boom, boom, boom. Great. By 8:39, I'm starting like my day. So I would spend from 9 till noon, 9 to 1, doing anything creative, reaching out to guests, recording podcasts, prepping, creating content, sending emails, doing all that stuff. Then around 1-ish every day, I would pack up a cooler, I would jump in my car, and I would literally drive from 1 till 9 p.m. till 10 p.m. And any day could average from 150 miles driven all the way up to 300, 350. And I would just rip around all day. And that was the beauty of the app. You turned it on and off as much as you wanted. And when I was done for the day, I would turn it off, drive back home, go to sleep, do it all over again. That was like my grind. Mondays were my day off, where it was just full creative day. And it was a lot of podcast prepping, editing, posting, all that. Tuesday through pretty much Saturday, it was like that. It was like 9 a.m. to noon work, 1 p.m. till night drive. And then Sunday was kind of just Uber day. But I would drive anywhere between 45, 55 hours a week.
Jeez.
I didn't really have a life other than work. Like my slogan was podcaster by day, Uber driver by night. And I just slayed the streets, man. I just took it one day at a time. And I'd say I was probably honestly not mad about driving all that often. Like I'd keep one AirPod in my left ear. I would burn through podcasts. If I wasn't talking to the person in the car, I would keep the music on really low. But I met a lot of great people. I got to see all different parts of LA. You know, the crazy thing about LA is there's such a wide spectrum. Like I'd be dropping somebody off at a $20 million mansion, and an hour later I would be in the middle of the hood. And it would be so like, wow, you know, like there's two different worlds in just 1 hour. And I learned so much from the people that I met, the things I was able to see. Like I got to see LA unlike any other resident. It would probably take a resident, 30 years to see what I saw in 2 years, man. Because it's such a big city. And you probably hear it, even not living here. It's like traffic, traffic, traffic. you're not just going to go drive 30 minutes to go check out some coffee. I mean, you will, but like, it's just impossible to see all of these neighborhoods the way I saw it in 2 years.
Dude, that's such a unique perspective. That's so wild. I love just the fact that you'd see, a stupidly rich person, and then probably the next ride could be to somewhere in, I don't know, like Compton or some of those like lower income areas, and just seeing like you said, there are two very different worlds out there. What are like some of the lessons you think you learned of just like interacting with some of those different types of people?
I will say first thing, and then I'll answer that question. It's interesting because when I was dropping somebody off at the 10, 15, $20 million mansion, I always thought to myself, wow, they could easily afford a black car, which is a more luxury professional service, but they would rather be in the back of my 2016 white Ford Fusion hybrid. And I always respected that because I was like, this is somebody that clearly has amassed some type of wealth, but they still see a dollar as a dollar. And so I always took that with me. But I think some of the lessons that I took away from that experience was, so many. You don't really know, don't judge a book by its cover, right? So like every person that I would interact with had a story. And I thought that was really eye-opening. I would literally have people would get in my car and it would be such a loaded question, but the same question every day. Hey, how's your day going? Some people would shrug me off and say, good, thanks. Some people would say, good, how you doing today? Want to have a conversation? And then some people be like, dude, you're not going to believe like this happened. And then this, like they had been waiting almost years for somebody to ask them that question. Right. So I feel like every person always had a story to tell. I think being curious, it felt like mini podcasts all day where I would just like talk to people and ask them questions and try to get to know them. Another thing I took away from that experience was truly like taking it one ride at a time was always like my mindset, because there were days when I had limiting beliefs about my own like direction. Like I have all this passion to help people and want to change the world, but here I am being the Uber driver, like I'm not doing what I want to do full time, right? And so I got in my head a lot, and I always remind myself, just take it one ride at a time, take it one ride at a time. But at the same time, that's another lesson I learned, which was like, do not attach your identity or worth to what you have to do to get by. Like inevitably, we all go through those chapters in our lives where we have to do something we don't want to do. And as hard as it is in those moments, just keep your head held high and do it to your best of your ability. Because funny enough, what's going to happen is after you're out of that experience, you then look back on it with the most amount of gratitude. I love, and I wear this as a badge of honor, that I have 19,002 Uber rides under my belt. I love when someone's like, what does that tattoo mean? I love when people are like, you were an Uber driver? I love being able to talk to you about on today's podcast, because it gives me a point of reference of like, for other people listening too, I had to do shit that I didn't want to do to get me to where I am today. And whether that's you working a job or that's you doing X, Y, or Z to get by, you just do what you need to do to get to where you want to be. So I have the most amount of gratitude for Uber and what the platform provided me, because if your question you asked me earlier was, would you still have been able to make it work if you never moved out to LA and you just stayed in Boston? Yes. The question that kind of messes with my mind is, if you didn't have Uber, would you have been able to make the podcast work? Because the biggest thing for me with the podcast when I was reaching out to guests, once again, this is before Zoom became what it is. The biggest offer I had to people when they would say yes for the podcast, I would say, great. When can you do the podcast? Wednesday at 3 p.m., Tuesday at 7 p.m., Saturday at 9 a.m. You tell me when you can do it and I'll make it work, because I don't have a boss, and I will build my day around when you are available to do it. So that was a huge, huge value prop for me with driving Uber. But I know deep down that if I had to do something else and I was working a job, I still would have found a way, but it would have been much harder because say that time in my life, I had to work a job, as you probably feel it within when yourself as a creative, like I know I am the most creative and clear in my mornings and up to midday. Afternoons and evenings, shot. I'm not getting any creative work done. I can take phone calls. I can do analytical work. No creative is coming out of me. So to think like, what would have life looked like if I had to do podcasts at 6, 7 p.m. every day after a full day's work in an office? This podcast wouldn't have been that great. So yeah, man, so much gratitude for Uber.
That's cool, man. Again, it's such a unique perspective. Taking it one ride at a time for 19,000 rides. And I feel like Uber is probably, I would imagine, like one of the easiest ways to become self-employed or be self-sufficient. Like there's not a lot of other things that have such like low barrier to entry. As long as you got a car and a driver's license, like
that's it.
You can make as much money as you're willing to drive, I guess, right?
Yeah. I will share this too. That year in Boston when I graduated in that full year. Now, mind you, this is before, so they don't take taxes out, right? They don't take taxes. You have to pay for your own gas. Before all that, and let me tell you, I worked my ass off. But still, I netted $70K on my own time driving Uber in Boston full time in 2016.
That's impressive. That's very impressive.
It's like, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, right? You hear 70K, Damn. So somebody thinks, wow, you made 70K. But in my mind, I'm like, to me, that felt like 150K because I was making it on my own time. That was priceless. The ability that I was turning on and off an app and driving and making money when I wanted to, that was so, even if I was averaging $30 an hour, to me, I felt like I was making more than that because it was on my own time. So that was huge. Like being able to make that amount of money by myself without anyone telling me what to do was incredible.
Dude, that's got to give you a ton of confidence to be. It's like, again, that's what's so great about Uber. I feel like is it's an easy way to get into the self-employment life, and it's a very easy way to show somebody that as long as you're willing to put in the time and the work, like you can make more and more money. It's like, obviously you don't want to always be directly correlated with trading your time for money, but it's like an easy way to show people like you don't have to go work a corporate job that you just hate. Like you can be self-sufficient and be your own boss and then let that lead into other bigger things eventually.
Yeah. It's the world we're living in today. Even if you don't want to drive Uber, Postmates or like food delivery or there's just so many side hustles that you can kind of start up and do yourself that it's just endless opportunities for people to make money.
So what happened to where we never got the 19,000th and third ride? Why did it end at 19,002?
Well, I'll tell you before I get to that, what's funny about why end at 19,002? Why not end at 19,000, right? I'll tell you that after I tell you how this all stopped.
Okay. So
October of 2019, I have a conversation with a buddy of mine. At the time he's managing, his name is Zach Conovar. At the time he was managing a YouTube group called Yes Theory. And I was like, dude, I can't be driving Uber anymore. I want to be doing this full time. So we spent 30 minutes to an hour, me and like two of his team members, and we whiteboard my whole life. What I'm in debt, how much money I'm making, this, that, the third. The takeaways are this. You need to find a way to get out of driving Uber, and you need to find a job or a career that's going to help you develop better skills because you're not developing skills driving Uber anymore. And I was like, you're right. 2-3 weeks goes by. I had just got back from visiting my family back in Massachusetts. I get back from driving Uber one of those that night. Grab my phone and I post an Instagram story. Now, mind you, the 2 to 3 years leading up to this singular night of driving Uber, I documented the whole behind the scenes of me driving Uber, me eating lunch in my car, me telling stories. I was unapologetic about sharing the day-to-day life of being an Uber driver. And I got that confidence from Gary Vee. He always said, document the journey. And that's what I was doing. I was documenting the whole podcasting at noon. And then I was driving Uber till 10 p.m. at night and like giving people recaps of like the random stories, right?
That's cool. You did all that.
Oh
had
yeah.
the foresight to be able to do that.
Oh yeah. Dude, I got that. Thankfully for the archive in IG, when I see you in person next, I'll like kind of pull up and we can pull up some of the random clips. But I got some shit for days, dude. So I get back one night, pull up my Instagram, and I'm like, listen, I've loved driving Uber. So grateful for this opportunity, but I'm putting it out there to the world right now. Hold me to it. At the top of 2020, I'm done driving Uber. This is it. I've done my time. I'm 3 years in. I know I have a lot of value to bring. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it's for a company, for someone. I don't know if I'll figure out how to monetize myself. I'll figure it out. I wake up to a DM. Excuse me, DM or text? Forget. I think it was a DM. I wake up to a DM from a past podcast guest of mine. His name's Brandon Cohen. Founded this company called Liquid IV. And he DMs me. He said, yo, can you hop on a call tomorrow at 5 p.m. or at whatever time? Now, me and Brandon at this time, I interviewed him a year ago for my podcast. I'd ran into him 3 or 4 times throughout the year. Good vibes, good energy, rooting for each other. When he had a success, I had a big podcast guest, great. A month before he DM'd me, I had just went into his office, did like a whole behind the scenes shoot of this new series that I was doing. It was called What They Don't See. It was like a behind the scenes of like what they don't see. What's behind the founder? What's behind the creative director? What's behind the fashion designer? So I see this DM and I'm like, I'm like, yeah, sounds good. I go back, I look at who's viewed my Instagram stories, and he viewed my story, and I was like, is there a chance he's got something like up his sleeve? So I get on a call with him. Now, mind you, in between him setting up the call with me and me jumping on the call, I think it was early next week, he just so happened to be flying out to New York City to be on Ask Gary V podcast. So I get on the call with him the next week. And I go, listen, before we get into anything you want to talk about today, how the hell was Gary V? What was the podcast like? We're jamming. And he's like, listen, he's like, I've seen everything you've been doing, and I saw your post, and I have this role that I'm about to be rolling out next week to our recruitment team, but I wanted to run it by you before it goes out because I think you would crush the role. And as he's saying this to me, my heart just drops. I'm just like, this is the guy that like, he could have been selling rocks on the side of the road and I would have said yes, because of doing the one-on-one podcast with him, I did a group podcast with him and a couple other founders at one point. I went and did the What They Don't See vlog. I knew this guy inside and out, and I was like, listen, not to him, I didn't say this, but in my mind, I've interviewed a lot of founders, all great people, but this guy sits on a very specific hand of 5, not because of the success that Liquid IV was having at the time, which was nowhere the scale of what it is now, but I admired this guy top to bottom, who he was as a founder. And I was like, yes. I told him on the phone, I said, he didn't even tell me the salary, didn't tell me any of the benefit, nothing. He just told me the role and what it was going to be, which was like building out a behind the scenes content team for the company and him. I was like, Brandon, yes. Like, I don't know what the salary is. I don't know any of the details, but yes. So he's cracking up. He's like, listen, I got to put you on a call with our HR person just so you can hear what the details are before you fully verbally commit. But like, I think this is the role for you. I don't do any interview. I get an offer email, transparently, that was 6 figures, which is like, I go from Uber driver to now a 6-figure offer. And I was like, yes, let's do this. 2 weeks later, I was working full time at Liquid IV.
Damn.
So no interview, no nothing. And that was a game-changing moment because I was burnt out from driving Uber. I was also burnt out with my podcast, Purpose in the Youth. I'd done it for 3.5 years straight, didn't miss a single week, hadn't seen crazy growth analytically. I was kind of just like, is this the right thing? I literally, before I talked to him, was putting the show on pause to give myself more space to think. And it just so happened that while the show got put on pause, the next week I was starting full time at Liquid IV.
Jeez, dude, that's powerful. I mean, just from a matter of putting yourself out there, making the right connections and attracting that kind of stuff to you. That's freaking powerful, man. Are you still with Liquid IV?
Still with Liquid IV full time till this day.
Dude, so it's been what, over 3 years now?
It's 3.5 years now. It'd be 4 years in October.
That's amazing, dude. So that was it. Like that day you accepted that position, you said, "Fuck it, I'm done with Uber."
Yeah. So I accept the position. He's like, "Great." I was like, "When can I start tomorrow?" Like, I'm like, "Let's get this rolling, dude. I'm ready to go." He's like, "Listen." He's like, I forget what the reasoning was, but it was like, "Listen, we need to do like a 2-week onboarding like we need 2 weeks before you can start because we have to like get HR set up with you. You need to get health insurance. Like, you can't just like start date tomorrow. Like, this ain't Uber, bro. You can't just turn on and off the switch." So I was like, this is great. It'll give me some time to like, just like kind of, I don't know, just give myself a little bit of a break in between the podcast shutting down and starting with you. In reality, I didn't take much of a break because I just kept hustling. But the Uber story is great because I determined that the last day I was going to drive Uber was on a Sunday. I think Monday was like a holiday nationwide. So I would be starting with the company either Tuesday or Wednesday of that next week. So I went out Saturday as like my last day driving Uber. And I saw that I was close to 19,000 rides. I was like, perfect. I'm going to end this on 19,000. It's a great number. So I go out and I intentionally hit 19,000. I get back that night, put up a story. Great time driving Uber. Big things coming. Hadn't really announced what I was doing next. But I was like, I'm done driving Uber. And I go look at my app, and Uber had this thing, and I don't know if they still have it to this day, where Monday through Thursday, there was a ride bonus. So if you hit 50 rides in 4 days, you got a $100 bonus. And then on the weekends, Friday through Sunday, there was another bonus. If you hit 25 rides, you got a $80 bonus, whatever it looked like, right? So I get back into my house, and I realize I'm 2 rides short of hitting the bonus. Now this bonus is probably $100, dude, right? Like, it's $100, $100, and it's like, yeah. I'm about to start a new career. Like, I don't need this $100. But in my mind, I'm like, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I was like, the job is not finished. So I got back in my car at 7 a.m. on Sunday the next day, and I said, I need to finish these 2 rides. And I went out, I did 2 more rides, I turned off the app, and I came home, and that was it.
Dude.
But I loved it even more because it was like, it wasn't because I was like, I'm going to talk about it on the podcast with Jeremy 3-4 years from now. It was like, internally, I felt relief where I was like, I finished the job. Yeah. I checked off the box, and I was like, I love that now for the rest of my life. It's 19,002. 19,000 is already captivating, but why the 2? Like, why didn't you? Yeah. I've always got people ask, why didn't you stop at 19,000? And there's a reason. There's a story behind it. That's
amazing. That had to be, I would imagine, like kind of an emotional moment, right? Like, do you remember that 19,000th and second ride, that final one?
Yeah. So it was when Uber was still doing Uber Pool. And so I had one passenger in my car. I was dropping this passenger off at one spot, and then along that route, we got pinged to pick up another person. So I went to pick up this other person, and once they got in my car, I turned off the app so it wouldn't send me any more rides. And I don't know if it was because it was Sunday morning or like they just weren't very socially wanting to talk to me. I just remember this person getting in the car and just thinking to myself, like, this is it. Like, this person has no idea that they're the last ride. And it felt just like relieving, like this is actually like happening. And it's even kind of really crazy to like think about it as we're talking about it, because I stopped my second podcast a year ago, right around a year ago. It was June of last year. I don't really jump on podcasts that much anymore. I only will say yes to it if it's someone that I know and like I want to be part of it. I have slowed down from just doing the random yeses, which I've enjoyed that. And I think it's a fun game to play to like get your name out there and your voice out there. But it it kind of becomes repetitive. And I also don't want to spend too much time just talking about myself in the past, but it's these moments, Jeremy, that it just feels like rewarding to remind myself of where I've come from and where I'm at, because as I'm sure for you and anyone listening, like all we do is we think about where we want to go. But if you take a moment and you look back on where you came from, it gives you so much inspiration and momentum to remind yourself of, like, if you got from there to here, you can get from here to there. So yeah, it's very warming when I think back on what that moment was like.
I love that, man. Yeah, it reminds me of that saying by, I think it's Jordan Peterson. He says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today. That's like a mantra that repeats in my head all the time. And just because it's so easy to compare yourself to where someone else is right now, like, and you have no idea how long they've been doing it for, what their prior circumstances are. You just see that they're doing something better than you, or they're further ahead. And that immediately is going to kill your confidence and hurt your self-esteem. Whereas instead, if you take it from, like you're saying, of being grateful that you're so much further ahead now from where you used to be, even from yesterday or last week or 10 years ago, whatever. I love that, man. That's such a cool, unique story that obviously you're going to be able to take with you forever.
Yeah. Yeah. The Uber days, man. Sorry for the Uber. Now we're here.
I love it, man. So where does this like whole, cause like, I know now your main thing is like self-improvement, coaching people, helping them, I would imagine, get through a lot of the same shit you had to go through. What was the journey like to take all that on? Yeah,
I'd say it's kind of what I said earlier, right? Like going through, like, I feel like I've been through 3 chapters of my life while living in LA. Similarly, like as a creator, I feel like there's been like these different chapters. So like at a high level, I take the role with Liquid IV in October of 2019. Mind you, 5 months later, we hit a pandemic. So the fact that I took that role, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that happen, because it's just crazy when you look back on it, right? So I pretty much take a 9-month hiatus of like really creating while I take on this new role with Liquid IV. I want to kill it. The pandemic hits, then we have downtime. We're all home. That's what gets me to like start creating again. So I spend the next pretty much 2019, 2020, just continuously one podcast a week. I'm just kind of like, just keep creating, just not really sure, like, how do I monetize? How do I build the business out of this? Same thing for 2021, up until probably the first 6 months of 2021, doing the same thing. Just keep creating, trusting it's all going to work itself out. Big decision, or big thing that changes for me in the back half of 2021 is my buddy JT Barnett, big TikToker, runs a TikTok agency now, really successful. But back then, even then, it was having success. He's getting in my ear, you got to be on TikTok. You got to be posting on TikTok. So I started just kind of testing, creating TikTok content while building out my podcast. This is November of 2021. Started to see success. Pretty quickly gained like 40,000 followers on there.
Damn.
And I remind myself kind of like what Gary Vee had always said, go to where the attention is. And I kind of just see this moment of like, okay, one video I had go viral has touched more people than all of my years of podcasting combined. Now, I don't regret all the podcasting years. I loved every conversation, but I'm like, you need to now be thinking from a business standpoint. Like, if you want to stop just doing this as a passion, you got to really lean into what is working. So I'm like, I'm going to go heavy on TikTok. So now it's 2022. First 6 months of 2022, I'm balancing both all in on TikTok, still putting out weekly podcasts, but now getting burnt out with podcasts once again, because I'm starting to get burnt out. I'm not seeing the success there that I want. I'm not monetizing it. But now I'm starting to get brand deals through TikTok. More opportunities are coming through there. I'm respectfully starting to get like recognized in LA from TikTok. I'm like, this, not because I'm trying to like be famous and like stroke the ego, but it's like having people come up to me and be like, dude, your video like did X, Y, and Z for me. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. This is great. Like, I'm actually impacting people to that depth. So
what kind of content were you creating on TikTok?
Self-improvement. It was, you know what, the best way to describe it is like the podcasts were very similar. It's like self-improvement, having guest interviews similar to like this. But what I was doing was like I would do like 2 podcasts a week, one with a guest, one solo. The solo could be a 30-minute podcast on well-being. And I would dive into like 5 things that I'm doing that's helping me and spending 8 minutes on each one and how it works, this, that, the third. I was taking those same concepts and putting into a 60-second TikTok. So I was creating content that was wellness, well-being, men's lifestyle, self-care, parts of my journey of 100 days of meditation, 1,000 days of celibacy, all these things. I was putting it into content. And anyway, long story short, I ended up deciding I need to stop the podcast once again. This is a new show at the time. It's called It's the Bearded Man. I need to pause this podcast. I need to go all in because I had amassed like 40,000 by probably early 2022. And now I was at like 80,000. So I doubled and I was starting to see deals come in. And I was like, all right, what would happen if I put all of my creative attention into the short form content? So June 2022, a year ago, I stopped the podcast. I hire one of my buddies who I met through podcasting years ago. He ends up starting a one-on-one coaching business for creators that are trying to build a business. This is somebody that I've seen build a 6-figure business, coaching, group coaching, digital courses, the whole 9. I hire him. And from that moment, for the next year, I went down a rabbit hole of just short form content consistently, building out digital courses, building out a coaching program, building out a newsletter, and truly systemizing and building out a business. Like, wow, it's unbelievable where I'm at now to where I was even 6-7 months ago. Like, I have different offers. I have ways to like help people. I have a one-on-one program that if people are willing to pay a premium, they can work with me in a one-on-one capacity. I went from, at the time, 80,000 on TikTok to 280,000. I went from 9,000 on Instagram to 100,000. Those numbers are not there. I say that because you need attention when you want to build these businesses and you want to see success. I've seen your growth on Instagram and it's been crazy, and to see like the community build, it's amazing. And that's what allows you to build your business and build out offers, right? So ever since a year ago, I've been really down this path of like, how does Bobby become a business? And while working full time, still managing to do all these other things. And it's been incredible. It's been a journey, but I guess all that to say, like my goal really, if I had to like define it through the content, is helping people stay on track of their goals by optimizing their time. And Jeremy, how did I become such a master of time? From driving Uber. That's what taught me time management. Because any moment that I wasn't driving Uber, I was technically losing out on an opportunity to make money. So if someone is like, do you want to grab coffee Saturday at noon? My mind's processing, okay, so I got to drive to them 30 minutes, be with them for an hour, then leave for 30 minutes. When I was driving Uber, I was like, do I value this cup of coffee at $80? Because that's what I could be making driving Uber. So I started to become a time management master. And fast forward to today, that's what I attribute who I am and where I am, is because I've mastered time so much. And that's what I'm helping people do now.
Dude, I love that, man. That's such a powerful journey. And I love that it's all kind of rooted in that time management. Just because time is obviously like the one thing that everybody has the same amount of. And I mean, it's so cliche to say, but everybody's got 24 hours, but everybody has 24 hours. And I'm a big fan of like the idea that our lives are just a sum of all the decisions that we make. And I have to preface that with like, obviously people come from different circumstances. People are dealt better hands than others and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like, our lives are just the decisions that we make and how we choose to spend our time, who we spend to choose or who we choose to spend our time with. I think some of it just comes down to time and the decisions that we make with our time.
Yeah, it really, like, you hear the cliche that 24 hours in a day, but if you truly start to align your day with your priorities and things that matter most to you, and you hit the repeat button and you continue to do that consistently, you will be amazed at how much progress you're making. Because the only reason people are making progress in the parts of their life that they value and want the most is if they're honest with themselves, are they actually putting in the time that it takes? Mm-hmm. If not, there's your problem. And we're all impatient. We all want to be there sooner than later, but you only can control the present moment. You can only control the now. And when you accept that, you can really step in and start making those changes. Similar to what we were talking about earlier. You don't need an external environment to make the change. People wait until a new month, a new day, a new year. Screw all that shit. Let it be a decision, a moment where you decide, I want to change X about my life, and then go out and actually do that thing.
Do you think you have to be ready in that moment to make that decision, or you just have to just do it?
You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing to commit to it, right? I've always been a big believer. You don't need to have the perfect blueprint to get started. Write the blueprint as you go. Trying to sit down and come up with, like, all right, well, let's use running, as I know a big running audience. I want to run a marathon. So let me sit down and think about the next 6 months of what my running schedule looks like. And I've never ran 1 mile. That's overwhelming. You also have no context and understanding of, like, how much you should be running, how fast, when. You don't even know what shoes to wear. Like, don't overwhelm yourself with, like, what has yet to come. What should you focus on today? Putting on your shoes and going and running 1 mile. Great. Do that again tomorrow. Great. Do it again the day after that. Now 1 mile seems pretty easy. Let's amp it up to 2. Let's amp it up to 3. You don't need to have the perfect running shoes. You don't need the perfect running gear. You don't need the perfect running watch. You just need to get started to get that momentum going. So similarly, like, you just have to start. That is the best way to get that momentum moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's you hit it right on the head, I think. As somebody who optimizes their time, what does a day in the life of Bobby look like right now?
Yeah, it's pretty regimented, man. It's interesting. My Monday through Friday are regimented to a T. And then the weekends, I actually allow myself to flip that off and just, like, kind of be and flow, and, like, try not to have an alarm clock on in the morning unless, like, I need to be somewhere, or don't make a to-do list, right? Like, for the weekends, like, I kind of just will flow and see where the day and the weekend takes me. So, like, most days I wake up at 5 a.m. First 2 hours of my day are just, like, self-care, working out, meditation, journaling, just priming my mind, body, and soul for the day ahead. And then I'd say anywhere between, like, 7:30, 8 a.m. my time till 6, I'm working. Balancing liquid IV with my own personal stuff. I eat the same meals at the same time every day. I go for a walk every day at noon, at 1. It really is habitual. And then I'm pretty set on, like, a hard stop at 6, the latest, every day. And then the rest of the evening could be, like, tonight I'm going for a run with a buddy. Last night it was hanging out with my girlfriend, going to the dog park, and then watching Ted Lasso. Tomorrow it's very similar. So everything is intentional. My time is very aligned with, like, what are my priorities. So for me, every day it's a little bit of my well-being. It is my creativity. It is my career at Liquid IV. It is my clients. It is life experiences, my girlfriend, family. Everything kind of gets mixed in. Like, that's what the huge part of what I help people do within the one-on-one capacity is. There was a time in my life a few years ago where I didn't believe that you could live a balanced life while also striving and hitting your goals. I was burnt out and I just was working way too much. what I help clients do is recognize and realize you can have a little bit of everything. That's why you need to optimize your time. You're wasting time during the day doing X, Y, and Z. Well, what would happen if you change that, got 3 hours back every day, and then could allocate that time towards life experiences, towards dating, towards the things that you value the most, but you're not carving out time for, right? So all that to say, not every day is perfect. And I'm not somebody that like by the minute, like as soon as we get off this call, I got to make lunch for 13 minutes. And then by the 14th minute, I need to go do this. It's not like that to the T, but it's still very much systemized where like I'm building in certain parts of my day to do certain things because that's when I know like is when I'm going to be the most optimal to do those things.
One question I have for you, because I can almost guarantee somebody out there is thinking it right now, because I get it on every damn video I post on the internet. Must be nice to not have kids. How would you go about advising somebody who has kids that need to go to school in the morning? You got to pick them up from school. Maybe they have like practice in the afternoon or evening. What would you tell somebody like that if they want to optimize their time?
I don't have kids, right? But I want to challenge people that say that. If you're commenting and saying those types of things, you're almost being like resentful of your own reality, right? So like, don't make excuses for yourself. If you're saying, oh, it's because I have kids, get up earlier. Put the kids to bed, stay up later. Find a way to get in what you need. Once again, there are 24 hours in a day. If your 24 hours now is a responsibility taking care of a child, that's your reality. You do what you need to do. That's why I've recognized I don't want kids in my life right now because there's so many things that I want to do that I want to, when I do step into fatherhood, I want to be in a place where like I can fully give it my time and attention. And I'm not trying to get into whether you chose to have the kid or not, right? But I think just evaluate, where are you spending your time? Could you actually get up an hour early and have some stillness to yourself or have time to yourself before your child woke up? There are ways to optimize your time better. I think you just need to ask yourself, where are you spending your time? Because I guarantee you those same people saying, try having kids are wasting time watching Netflix, scrolling on TikTok, or during their working day, they are having 30-minute gaps where they're watching YouTube videos. I don't have any of that. That's why I optimize my time so much is I'm not being pulled in the direction of where the world takes me. When my phone rings, I don't just answer it. When I have downtime, I'm not just like scrolling aimlessly. Being mindful and conscious of time is money. Where are you spending it? If I get a random phone call at 9 a.m. from a friend I haven't talked to, it's in 6 months, I'm not picking up the phone. I have boundaries in my life because I'm focused on my business during those times. If my sister's calling me at 11 a.m., I'm not picking up because I'm working on my business. If she continuously calls me, yes, I will pick up. It's clear it's an emergency. But that person that is complaining, oh, we'll try having kids, I just think you're honestly just not taking control of your time and you're not taking on the responsibility to adjust and make it work. So
I love that.
It's on them. Like, you have to make it work. And yeah, it's just create the time. That's the other thing. Saying I don't have the time is really saying I don't value it enough. Because if you valued something enough, you would find a way to create the time for it.
That's beautiful, dude. That's a perfect answer. There's a Stoic quote along the lines of like, if it's humanly possible, you can do it. And I could go and find 1,000 people right now that have kids that are doing all this stuff that these people want to be doing, but instead they're making the excuses that they have kids and they can't do it. And again, people are probably going to say, well, it's easy for you to say because you don't have kids, you don't know from experience, but it is what it is. We'll let them think whatever they want. So I know you did it was 100 days of like consecutive working out, the however many days of no alcohol. Walk me through that. And why you did those different things.
Yeah. That's funny enough. I brought it up earlier, the YouTube group, Yes Theory. During the pandemic, before the pandemic, they had this challenge called the 100 Days of Sweat. And they randomly, sporadically, would just do the challenge and like they'd get their whole community involved and they would do it. And I don't remember if they during the pandemic, I think it was during the pandemic, they did that. They started the challenge again, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 100 days of sweat because I would hold myself accountable. There's a lot of downtime right now with the pandemic, and I need to force myself to stay on top of my physical health. So I did it. Completed 100 days, and then I started like testing other things. I did 75 days of no booze. Did like 30 days of meditation. I was also getting huge inspiration from Matt Diavella, a YouTube creator. He was like starting to post like these 30-day challenges that he was doing for himself. And I was like, what happens when I just commit to something for a short sprint? How much, like, I just want to see what happens in my life. So that really just came from a place of me like challenging myself. And it just has helped me hold myself accountable to following through and doing those things. And it's evolved. Like, right now I'm about this month, I'll be at a full year of not drinking alcohol. I didn't intentionally go out to do 1,000 days of celibacy, but after I kind of did these challenges, I looked back and I did the math where I was like, I was celibate for 1,000 days from when I graduated college while I was driving Uber all those years, which was like pivotal during my self-improvement chapter of my life. I was like really leaning into myself and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life and figure out my passion. And anyway, so all these challenges have just been these little sprints where I was like, let me see like what comes from me doing X. And it's felt really powerful to just push yourself and stay disciplined to whatever that challenge is. Fast forward to even more recently, last week, 2 weeks ago, I then created a challenge for my audience and community because I have seen the benefit of doing challenges myself. And I'm really big on like wanting to create things that give people guidance on how to make direct impact on your life. Like, listen, if I can tell you something from a social media post and you go out and you do it, great. And you make change in your life, great. You're not clearly my one-on-one ideal client. The client that needs me needs that accountability, and that's when I step in to help them. But if you can take what I'm telling you and go and do it yourself, awesome. I can't help the masses. I don't have the mental capacity or energy to one-on-one call 1 million, 2 million people. So like, I want 99% of people to figure out for themselves. And if there's that 1% that can't and want my help, great. Helps me build my business and I'm helping you. Awesome. But I came up with what is called the Win Your Day Challenge. And it's a 30-day challenge that will truly mentally, physically, spiritually, completely reset an individual. And the way I was able to develop it was by leaning into all the things that I habitually do that have had the biggest impact on me. And so I wanted to create one that was kind of balanced, but also was going to help somebody that if they followed it to a T, they would feel different, right? So like you think of like 75 Hard challenge by Andy Frisella. That's like balls to the wall, full throttle. It's incredible for like a complete reset. But for somebody that's like at 0.0, I think it can be really hard to get into that challenge because it is such a shift. It's all about slow incremental changes, just like with running, right? You build up with miles over time. It's not like week 1, you're running 5 miles a week. Week 2, you're running 100 miles. It doesn't happen like that. I don't think it's possible for someone to go from 0 to 75 hard. And I wasn't creating with this in mind, but like I saw a gap where I was like, I want to create the challenge that is going to help anybody get the momentum going. I don't want to make it 60, 90, a 6-month challenge. Because once again, I want you to be focused on this moment. And I want you to know this is just 30 days. You start adding in 60, 90, anything more than that, it's overwhelming. It's like 90 days. Holy shit. Am I going to be able to like fully commit to that? That's really overwhelming. So I created a 30-day challenge, 4 morning routines that you cross off during the day, 7 daily do's that you must complete before the end of the day, and 5 daily don'ts you have to stay away from during the day. And truly, if somebody falls through that Win Your Day challenge, it is going to completely change them physically, spiritually, and mentally. And I think that's the whole idea is win your day. Because if you can conquer the day, conquer the week, conquer the month, and everything else ripples for all other aspects of your life.
I love that. So do you give them the do's and the don'ts and things that they need to do, or do they determine that on their own?
Yeah. So I At least off the top of my head, like the morning routines you must complete before you start your day. Make your bed, 50-minute workout, 10-minute meditation, and create a to-do list for the day ahead. Great. The daily do's can be done at any moment in time during the day, but it needs to be completed by the end of the day. Some of which include like eating an 80-20 diet. So eating 80% good, maybe there's a little bit of cheating in there. 7 hours minimum of sleeping. A journal template that I provide them, a 5-question journal template. So there's all these things they need to do. Daily don'ts would be no alcohol, no smoking, no porn, no social media for the first or last 60 minutes of your day. And so the challenge is already created for them. I ended up creating like a free Notion tracker for them to track it. So at least they can hold themselves accountable and, check off the box, see the percentage, see the growth over the challenges. But I wanted to just give people, once again, people want to be told what to do. I just wanted to give them the challenge. Follow this to a T, check off every box, and you're going to feel a difference within 30 days.
I love that, dude. I would imagine even if people, like the 80-20 rule, if people follow 80% of that, within 30 days, guaranteed, they're going to have some sort of change in their life or some sort of reset. I think so much of the struggles that people go through sorry, it's raining. I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's like so loud.
No.
Anyways, sorry. But so much of the struggles that people go through are, I think, due to lack of confidence. And I like that you call it the 7 wins or whatever you said, like
daily
those things. Daily dues. Yeah, like those little small incremental wins that you have to have because they give you that little bit of confidence to start your day. And it's like, if you can start your day with that, whether it's a run or something as simple as making your bed, like the rest of your day is so much better following that. And I just think a lot of it comes down to lack of confidence. So doing those things to build that confidence it's a surefire win, I think.
Yeah. A big philosophy and how it came to the Win Your Day challenge, not only because I believe in if you win your day, you win your week, you win your month. I've been living by and posting the philosophy for years now. You win the morning, you win the day. Mm-hmm. And it's all about creating the momentum early in your day, which carries on through the rest of the day. And that's where I wanted to kind of pull inspiration from, because that quote has been so inspirational to me. And I think for other people, it's like, don't focus on the week and the months leading up to the marathon. Focus on what's the run you need to do today. And that's what I've been all focused on right now, is just like, even through this conversation with you, like, there's so much going on in this world, so much I want to do, so much you want to do, right? But like, how do I give this singular moment my all attention? Great. Then I move on to the next thing. Great. Then I move on to the next thing. It's just being here in the now, or in terms of the challenge, checking off the one box at a time makes all the difference.
Yeah. Just trying to be present.
Yes.
In day-to-day life. That's one of the hardest things we can all do. What is the ultimate goal for Bobby? Do we have like I hate the question when people ask me, but do you have like a 5-year, 10-year, like ultimate life goal?
Yeah. I've never been somebody that thinks that far in advance, because once again, like, I'm a true believer of create the blueprint as you go. I guess my goal for me right now, and I don't have a time, and this could be the worst thing for me or the best thing for me, of not having like, by the end of the next month, I need to have X and this, that. Like, I just kind of flow. But my biggest goal is like, get to a place where my business is fully funding itself. I have one-on-one clients. Maybe there's group coaching offerings. There's digital products, maybe live events. My biggest goal for myself is to truly, not only someone who's optimizing his time, but I want to be in full control of my time. And I want to do it so much so that I live within balance. Like, a perfect work day of ending at like 4 or 5 p.m. would be ideal, so that I can actually have like an evening with my girlfriend if I have kids, So I think for me, my biggest goal right now is just like, or the big goal is like truly living and operating on my own time, and then being able to use that time to show up to the world and help people out.
I love that, man. There's so much to be said about just the personal freedom that comes with that, being self-employed, self-sufficient, being your own boss, and just like not having to live under somebody else's guidelines.
Yeah.
And just the freedom that comes with that. So dude, I mean, you're providing so much value to the world, and like even just on this podcast, like you've said so many gems that I know they're going to resonate with people. They're going to provide inspiration and provide a ton of value. So I think you're well on your way, man. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you, brother. Oh, I hope there was some wisdom that the people listening could take from today's conversation.
A ton, man. I appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed this. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, at Bob on all socials. That's BO, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or BobbyHobert.com, BOBBYHOBERT.com. If you go to my website, you can find all my resources, free digital products, my coaching offer, the challenge, all that stuff is there as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'll put all the links in the description for the podcast so people can go check that out. But dude, appreciate you coming on. This was a ton of fun, man.
Dude, absolute honor. I do have one request.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you listen to this podcast often, or maybe this is your first episode, you need to go on to whatever platform you're listening to this episode. If it's Spotify, iTunes, it doesn't matter, or YouTube, if it's through YouTube, and you need to, one, either subscribe or you need to leave a review, because I know from the other side of being a host how much work goes on behind the scenes to make these shows actually be what they are. And there's a lot of time, energy, love, resources. So Jeremy's doing a phenomenal job as a host to give you guys and gals weekly content, or however often the content's coming out. Take 60 seconds, write a 1-sentence review, and it will make all the difference in the show.
Dude, I appreciate that, man. You're a gem. I appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you being here with me and guiding this conversation.
Yes, sir. I love it, man. We'll see you when you're down here in Austin here pretty soon.
Yeehaw! Let's go, baby.
All right, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.